So, before we begin, just a little bit of housekeeping. Please mute yourself if you're not speaking. There's a little microphone symbol at the bottom left of the toolbar. I've got children walking around, so you might hear their voices. We're going to do some hand. So when you're in your breakout groups, these are really useful. When you want to speak, just raise your index finger, clarification, make a C. When you're in your breakout groups and someone needs to finish what they're saying, if you're running out of time, just do this round up symbol. And if in this big group you want to speak, because it's hard to see everyone, we've got lots of different screens. So if you click on the participants in the toolbar and then select raise hand, it makes a little hand shape. And so we can see who wants to speak, or just write the word stack into the chat, and then we can see that you want to speak. And if you need something clarified, just write clarification in the chat. So this workshop lasts 2 hours. We're going to email you the resources that we talk about in this workshop and any relevant information. So yeah, first bit of context. Welcome. This workshop is part of the Trust the People learning programme. Trust the People is a movement which is trying to support the growth of community democracy in the UK and also around the world, in the hope that it will lead people to shape a society that serves the needs of people and planet. It was born in Extinction Rebellion's Future Democracy Hub, but it now extends far beyond and is supported by people from a range of democratic movements and communities. It was started because we want change. So our society is hugely unequal. It is intimately linked to the exploitation of people and of the planet. 1/5 of the UK lives in poverty, and this will no doubt increase as we're facing recession due to COVID-19 pandemic. And we are in a climate and ecological emergency, which is a threat to our existence. The government is not doing enough to respond to this. So we know that wealth and power are concentrated in the hands of the few. Carbon-intensive industries have a lot of political influence. Trust the People was born out of a desire for change and to help us reclaim our power. We fundamentally believe that we can work together to create a society we are proud of, and that it's able to thrive and not to struggle to survive, and in which we address the climate emergency we're facing. But to do this, we need to reshape our democracy. This is what Trust the People is about. We believe that supporting community democracy can help change communities, be they anything from informal neighbourhood self-help groups, co-ops, guerrilla gardeners, or whatever your ideas are, to formal structures such as parish wards, councils, towns, cities, counties, or ultimately the country. So our online learning programme is all about supporting community democracy, about helping people share the skills to connect with and work with others to transform their local communities. It has 5 modules. So we're in the first module, personal processing. Then there's group support, engaging communities, community assemblies, and community organising. All of these modules are about trying to spread the knowledge and the skills needed to reclaim community power and rebuild a real democracy from the bottom upwards. So we're also creating a support network system for everyone that's engaging in this community work or going through the modules, to have people to connect with and get support from. So these support hubs are called hives, and they're made up of 8 to 10 people. If you're interested in being put into a hive, there'll be information on how to join one. And yeah, I think we put it in the link in the chat, but it'll also be in the follow-up email. So just respond if you want to do that. This workshop is part of the personal processing module. So this is all about connecting with yourself, understanding who you are, your identity, your biases, and your relationship to society. This is to help us understand what stories and perspectives we carry with us when we're interacting with others. It's also about finding the courage within and developing the skills that will help when reaching out to others. This workshop is specifically to start that journey of understanding who you are, what assumptions you might make about others, and also what we think people assume about ourselves, so that we can better connect with people. There are also loads of other amazing resources that you can check out, a lot of which you can complete in your own time. So we'll be sending out those links too. The content contained within the workshop is adapted from the free educational resources created by the charity Facing History and Ourselves. So we're not claiming them as our own. Handing over to Anna.
Great, thank you, Hester. So welcome everyone. That was a bit of our kind of giving you the context and outlining what Trust the People is about. And yeah, we are super committed to trying to make a better world, and I assume that all of you are as well, because you're here. So we're going to start with a check-in, and it's going to be a slightly different check-in, and it's going to be giving you a chance to kind of reflect on your name and think about the story of your name, and you're going to share this with each other. And the reason that we're using this kind of check-in is because we introduce ourselves with our names all of the time in life, and unless we've changed our names, we had no choice in what our names are, and people do make assumptions on us because of our names and what we're called. So this is a chance for you to kind of take ownership of your name and tell a bit of your story in breakout groups when you're sharing it. I will say though, before, as with anything in this workshop, we are going to be going into breakout groups, and we are doing a lot of self-reflection and kind of maybe looking at ourselves in ways that we haven't, and it can be quite emotional, and people can find it quite difficult. So please only share information that you feel comfortable sharing. And yeah, if you decide that you want some time to yourself, and that's totally fine, you can just kind of turn off your camera or you can leave. So go through this in a way that you feel comfortable, and that in a way that doesn't kind of make you feel like you're vulnerable. But yeah, be aware that sometimes these activities can do that, and sit with that how you will. So before we put you into breakout groups, I'm going to give you a moment to reflect on these sentence starters. So the first one is, I was given my name because. Then, I like or dislike my name because. My name is or isn't a good fit for my personality because. And people assume something about me because of my name. So I'll give you a minute and a bit to just think of your responses for this by yourself, and you'll be sharing these in breakout groups. Or whatever you want to share.
We've just had a few people join, so I wonder if you might just explain the exercise we're on.
Yes, hi, welcome to those who have come in. We're just doing a reflection on our name. So our name is the first piece of information we often give when we meet people, but unless we've changed our names, it's been given to us and we don't have ownership about it. So this is a chance for you to reflect on a bit of your name story and how you feel about your name and the assumptions people might make about you because of your name. And we are going to be going into breakout groups shortly. So I'm going to start, and so that no one has to go first, we share our own things as facilitators. So I'll tell you a little bit about my name. And we recommend that when you're in breakout groups, you put on a timer so that everyone is able to share, and no one person dominates, and the others, whilst they're not speaking, they're just listening and learning from others and engaging in active listening. So my name is Anira. I was given my name because my grandparents on my dad's side are Welsh, and Anira is the female version of Aneirin. And my parents, Aneirin Bevan is the person who set up the NHS. My parents aren't doctors, but they support, I guess, structures that support people and believe in socialism. And so they gave me the name after him. And my granny didn't like that. She was like, you can't name her after a fat Welshman. But I like my name because of the fact that it comes from that. I think that any institution that supports people, regardless of their income and background, is super, super important. I dislike it because it's hard to pronounce. Most people, I've never met another Anira, and people are always mispronouncing my name. And so I'm always correcting people. And then that's probably it's probably shaped me a lot into who I am, because if your name is always mispronounced from an early age, you either just kind of like are silent and accept it, or you become quite feisty. And I've gone to the latter. And so I think that's made it quite a good fit for my personality. And people assume it's really, really exotic. They're like, I've had people say to me, how come you have an Arabic name? Or kind of they assume that, so my mum's from Uruguay, and they assume that Anira is a Uruguayan name. And then they're really surprised when they hear that it's Welsh. But I quite like that as well, because it's kind of, I guess it's the history of this island. Okay, there is my timer. So I'm just going to stop sharing the screen and put you into breakout groups. Please only share the information that you feel comfortable sharing. And could we, so 1.5 minutes each to 2 minutes. I'm going to put you into the breakout groups. I'm just seeing how many. Okay, I'm going to put you into breakout groups of 3 to 4. If you've got 4 in your breakout group, then maybe do 1.5 minutes. And if you've got 3, then 2 minutes. And please do use the timer and the round up signal. Yes, let me see if someone can post the questions in the chat. Okay, great. Thank you, Hester. Okay, see you in 8 minutes. I hope you have a nice discussion. Okay, great. So I think everyone is back. Welcome back, everyone. Could everyone just make sure that they are on mute as well? Some people like this because it enables them to kind of gain a bit of ownership, and a lot of these activities come from the educational charity that I work with, and it's in the classroom. If students are given a chance to own their name, they kind of are able to stop the assumptions that people might make about them, particularly if they have a name that sounds quite foreign. And in their school, students might judge them as not being able to speak the languages effectively or something. So giving them a chance to have their story and claim their name is quite a powerful thing. But some people find it that it's quite vulnerable. It makes people quite vulnerable. It makes them also think about their heritage and their family, and depending on your experiences, that can be quite difficult. So thank you for sharing. I hope that you learned a bit about each other, and that if it was a difficult thing to do, that it's helped you reflect in some way on why. And that, yeah, it was something that you've learned a bit from. In terms of this session today, it's going to be split into 2 sections. So the first bit is understanding our identity. So we're going to start thinking about ourselves, the factors that make us who we are, and the kind of, I guess, the implications of this. And then the second part of the session, we're going to be looking at single stories and stereotypes. So we're going to be watching a video by Chimamanda Adichie, the amazing Nigerian author, and where she talks about single stories and their impact. But we'll kick off with the first part of the session, and Hester's going to guide you through an activity.
So we're going to do mapping of our identities. We're going to start thinking about our identities, what makes us who we are. And some of the content here can be hard to process. So as Anara said, like, if it makes you feel sad or vulnerable, then feel free to leave or take a break at any point. And you can always, if you don't want to do this bit, you can always get in touch and do it at a later date. So we are going to give you a set amount of time to consider some questions before splitting into breakout groups to share your ideas together. So first, can you note down responses to the question, which words or labels would you use to describe yourself? So which words or labels would you use to describe yourself? You've got 45 seconds just to think about that. Lovely, thank you. So the next question is, or the response I'd like you to have to this question. Which words or labels would others use to describe you? So I'm going to give you 45 seconds to respond. Which words or labels would others use to describe you? Lovely. Okay, so there's no right or wrong way of doing this, but we're going to turn what you've written down and how you're responding to these things into a chart. So, aha, and Ira has prepared a lovely slide. You're going to put your name in the center of the page and do a circle around your name. And then you're going to do arrows going outward. So from the circle, directing outwards, and by those arrows, you're going to write the labels you give yourself or how you see yourself. And then the arrows going inwards, you're going to do what you think other people label you as or how other people see you. So,
and with these, like, with the arrows going out, it could be connected to the labels that you're thinking about, or it could be connected to things that you're interested in, to anything that you think makes you who you are. So your profession, your hobbies, your family, your heritage, anything, any factors that you think make you who you are. And then the ones going in can be labels that others might apply to you, or things that people might view you as, but also labels that society might give you. And I sometimes draw arrows that have kind of the little arrowheads either end, because sometimes they're things that society has applied to me, but then they've come to be a part of my identity, like to do with gender and skin color.
So you've got 3 minutes to do this, is that right, Anova? Okay, so I've put the timer to 3 minutes to give you just some quiet time to do that. If you've just joined us, maybe look at the chat. We've been thinking about our identities, and yeah, maybe just sort of join us after we've done this part. Okay, lovely. It's about 2 minutes. I'm going to share mine first, and then I'm going to, I think you guys are going to go into breakout rooms to share yours. So I'm going to share what I've put. The way I label myself, I've put mother, woman, sister, Arabic heritage, Londoner, dancer, yoga teacher, circus performer, sister. And then the arrows going in, so how I think other people see me. I've put poor, which is surprising me. So I've done this several times, and every time I hear Anira do this, she says the same as I am now, that every time I do it, different things come up. So depending maybe on actually how I'm feeling, and maybe how I see myself or how I think others see me actually changes. So maybe I'm quite conscious at the moment of my income or lack of income or standard of living, or like whether I was raised with or without money. So yeah, that's one I've put today. Foreign looking. So these are what I think other people see me as. Scruffy. Angry. So again, that's like different than what happens usually, but yeah, I do get angry quite a lot. Stressed. I'm stressed quite a lot, so I think maybe other people notice that about me. I think that's all I've put. Yeah, so another time I did this, one of the things, it was last time I did this actually. Oh no, I'm going on to the next part of the exercise. I'm not supposed to do that yet. Jumping ahead of myself.
Okay, I'm going to open up the breakout groups. Mom, I need to have 9 minutes in your group. Some of you are going to be in groups of 3 and some of you are in groups of 4. And please ensure that everyone has 2 minutes to share whatever they feel comfortable sharing on their identity chart. Again, if you don't feel like that you want to fill up 2 minutes, then that's completely fine as well. So I'm going to open up all the rooms now and just share whatever about your identity chart or of the reflections on labels that you would like to share. And we'll see you in 9 minutes. Welcome back. I can see some people are joining now. Welcome. I'm actually just going to close all the rooms now as well. So hopefully you learn a bit about each other. Sometimes we have a chance for reflections, but it just depends on our timing. So we don't actually have that much opportunity now. But if anyone would like to share any of their reflections on identity, I mean, you can spend hours doing this. I've had students when we've done identity charts at school who've just been like, Miss, let's just do this for the whole lesson, because they're so interested in learning about each other. And so yeah, you learn so many different things about people, and it is a beautiful activity. But unfortunately in this, if we were to do that, it would just go on for hours and we don't have chance. But in the personal processing, we do have the activities there outlined. So if you want to go and do it with your friends or people you know, or in any situation, then please do, because you can learn a lot about each other. And we have, one of the great things about it is that not only do you end up seeing that there are lots of similarities, like when I've done charts with people, I've kind of listened to them say things and I'm like, oh yeah, I'd apply that to myself. But also we see that we're really complicated. We see that our identities are full of all these different factors, and that they're really fluid, and that they change depending on the situations that we're in. So on mine, I would put teacher, educator, and I'm completely different when I'm in front of a classroom than when I'm with my parents or with my friends. And so understanding that identity is fluid and that it changes and that it's just so multifaceted is a really powerful when we start thinking about labels, and the fact that when you apply a label to someone, you boil down all of this kind of complex, amazing being to one thing. And that is what you use to define them, and that's really unjust when we think about that with ourselves. Like if someone applies one label to us and views that as us, then that feels quite it doesn't capture all of us, and we're so much more than that. So it's a useful exercise in kind of being aware of the complexity of human beings. And yes, the identity is full of contradictions. Thank you, Steph. So we're now going to do another activity. And we just want you to invite, we want to invite you to think about any features on your identity chart that I've posted in the chat that you felt proud of, that you felt ashamed of, that others find surprising, that are central to who you are, or that have changed over time. And I'm going to give you a minute or so to have a think about those. So I've posted them in the chat. Any that you felt proud of, felt ashamed of, that others find surprising, or that you feel are central to who you are. Really, I can see so many people want to share things. I'm so sorry. We're going to have to move on because we do try and cover a lot in this. But hopefully it's opened up kind of lots of thoughts and reflections, and you can go and have these conversations with people beyond this workshop. So before we finish this section on identity, we just want to focus a little bit more on this idea of when there are things that feel central to who we are and our identity. And the kind of the consequence of that, and it kind of touches a little bit on what you were saying, Graham. And often when things feel really central to who we are, they can be quite connected to our beliefs or our values, and things that we take to be important. And I'm going to read a little bit about what happens in our brain when these things that are really central to who we are feel like they're under threat, or that they're being challenged. And it's just quite an important thing to think about, because it will help us, I guess, understand others better, and also move through the world, I guess, with humility and kind of compassion. So until we're teenagers, our brain is like a flexible sponge, and it's absorbing all of the information in our external environment so that we can better understand the world and our position in it. And it's kind of acting like this builder. But then at some point in adolescence, our brain completely changes tack, and it stops being this sponge and it becomes a defender. So rather than absorbing information from what's outside, it prioritizes what is inside. So it gives dominance to the internal environment, which is what we think and we believe. And then from this point onwards, if we encounter any information that challenges our worldview, or this central feeling of who we are and our identity, then we can become defensive, and our brains literally go into fight or flight mode. So it's in exactly the same way they would if we were physically under attack. So when they do brain scans on people, they can see that the same parts of their brain are lighting up as if they're kind of like having to run away from a situation when they're facing serious harm or threat. And this is due to the fact that we have set ideas about who we are, about what we like, about what we believe, about the world, and our identity has in some ways become more fixed. And so then information that challenges this feels like a threat to who we are, and it feels like a threat to the reality that our brains have spent like 15, 16 years constructing. And that makes us feel quite vulnerable. So actually our brain becomes this defender, and we end up kind of retreating inwards or defending our views and believing they're the right ones. And there's a lot of research to show that there is something that then happens called the backfire effect. So that if these views are challenged, or anything that is central to who we are feels under attack, then we end up believing it more strongly than we did to begin with. And this doesn't mean that identity is completely fixed. We do change and we do grow and we do become new people over time. But when things that feel really central to our understanding of the world are challenged, we do feel like we're under attack. And then it becomes very hard for us to engage with what other people might be saying. So I'll give you an example. If we encounter someone who believes in a meritocracy and believes that you succeed because of your hard work and achievement, and this is quite relevant now, if this person is a kind of successful white and of a certain class, then it might be really difficult to talk to them about systemic forms of oppression such as racism and class. And this person probably has worked hard all of their life, but having to reflect on the fact that it wasn't just hard work that got them where they are can feel quite difficult, and also makes them feel like they're a little bit under attack. And I was also thinking about this recently with, it made me kind of empathize more than I'd ever had about kind of why people were so anti changes in gun laws in America. And I never thought, I just thought, why on earth? I mean, you can see all the statistics that suggest that they are kind of causing unnecessary deaths, but actually the fact that that if someone feels like really American and feels like the key part of their American identity is freedom and is their constitution, and this is very much tied in, and their right to bear arms very much tied in with who they are, then saying that they shouldn't have guns makes them feel like part of themselves is under attack. And then even all the statistics in the world won't make a difference that show that they're dangerous because a part of them feels like they're at risk. So it's kind of this difficult thing that means that it can be really hard to try and get people to challenge systemic oppressions, to be aware of kind of problems, or be aware of things that perhaps aren't that savory, or aren't like with American gun thing, or that are difficult to process. But we still need to try and do it. We just need to be aware that we are putting people in a state of stress in their brains and in their bodies if we are talking about something that's really central to who we are. So we need to make sure that when we are trying to connect with people, and if this connection is about trying to get them to understand some kind of systemic oppression, then we need to actually make a genuine effort to get to know them and build a bond, because people are much more likely to change their views or be empathetic when they have connections with people. But also we need to be aware that our brains are doing this because we might be wrong in what we believe, and our brain might be so fixed on trying to defend the world that it knows that we're not open to listening to what other people are feeling, or to open to understanding situations. So it's just there is an article for this in the personal processing thing that outlines it more, and you can read more about it. But yeah, it's just important to think about what goes on in our brains and this backfire effect, so that we can move through the world with more compassion and humility, and so that we're aware if we're suddenly getting a really explosive reaction from something, then that explosive reaction might be because we're making someone feel at risk. And also with ourselves, if we're suddenly explosive towards something as well. So we've got a couple of moments that we can invite anyone to share share anything that came to mind whilst I was talking about that. Great. Thank you for sharing. And I mean, when you do think, I can think about many situations where I have kind of either staunchly believed something more because I've had a discussion with someone I feel like those ideas have been under attack. We're gonna move on now and go on to the second part of the workshop, so that we can do a bit more reflection on kind of single stories and stereotypes, and Hester is going to lead you through that. But thank you so much for your reflections from this first part. It's been really, really interesting to hear your thoughts and see the chat going wild as well, and I hope you've kind of enjoyed sharing with each other.